The problem with a lot of complex tasks today is in any field, the body of knowledge actually become too large for one person to know. We got all the knowledge that the world has ever done in clinical trials over the last 20 years. So we've done about 350,000 trials in the world. We grabbed all that knowledge and put that into a single model. You can log onto our system and say, look, I'm doing a lung cancer trial, phase 3. To be good at almost anything in life, you just got to do your 10,000 hours of practice.
Today we have Sourav with us. Sourav is located in Sydney, Australia, and he has held leadership role throughout his career. And currently he is executive chairman at TrialKey. So just to give you background, TrialKey is an AI model that predicts clinical trial outcomes with exceptional accuracy. So I'm going to invite Saurav to help us with his introduction. I mean, with his background and what he's been doing at TrialKey, being one of the key members in the organization. So, welcome Saurav to the show, and
Great.
we're excited to have you here.
Right. Thank you very much. So a bit about me. So I'm a software engineer by trade. I did my own tech startup when I was young, sold that off to Telstra, which is like the local AT&T here in Australia. Did about 10 years of sales, 10 years more on the technical side. CEO of a business that we grew to about $100 million. Exited out of that about 3 years ago. So now I'm on about half a dozen company boards. And the one that I probably spend the most time with these days is TrialKey. So they're a medtech business that I'm the exec chairman of.
So tell us, what problem are you solving through TrialKey? So I was really excited to know about the AI model you guys are implementing in the TrialKey. So just give us a brief introduction, what is the business model and how you are basically implementing AI into it.
Yeah, totally. So if you kind of take a step back, so the problem with a lot of complex tasks today is in any field, the body of knowledge actually become too large for one person to know. So I'm a software developer. So when I learned engineering like 20 years ago, like Java 1.0, like you just had a developer. And then you had front ends and back ends, and then you had, QAs, then you had DevOps and SecOps, and you had database admins. So over time, just the amount of knowledge became so much and so complex that one person couldn't do it. And the same has happened in medicine now. So if you look at how much knowledge there is in medicine, it's completely impossible for one person to know it all. So then what you lose is the ability to connect dots between different trials, between different conditions, or even the exact same condition that two different researchers in other parts of the world are doing. It's almost impossible for one person to actually know all that knowledge and connect it together. So that's fundamentally the problem that we solve. So we got all the knowledge that the world has ever done in clinical trials over the last 20 years. So we've done about 350,000 trials in the world. We grabbed all that knowledge and put that into a single model. So you can now actually ask the model a whole bunch of things, and it can predict a whole bunch of things that one person individually wouldn't actually be able to do.
Awesome. What was the market gap here technically, if you can just elaborate on that part, and how do you are capitalizing on the market gap? So how you're building business around it?
Yeah. So I guess the market gap is like almost all clinical trials fail. It's only like a very, very small percentage that succeed. So a typical phase 2, you'll spend $50 million, you run a trial, and you've got like 20 or 30% chance of success. Phase 3, even lower. And then there's almost no chance of getting FDA approval, like only 35 to 40 drugs per year actually get FDA approval. So there's a huge kind of market inefficiency here where people are doing things they think are right, but they just don't actually have the data around them to actually inform that decision. So then what we did ourselves is we got those 250,000 trials that I mentioned. We built our own LLM. We picked up about 1,300 variables per trial. And then we used weights to try to figure out which of these variables lead to a trial succeeding or not succeeding. So for example, one might be the ingestion method. Was it an injection? Was it a cream? Was it a tablet? Was it a nasal spray? We'll figure out for every type of condition whether that was a meaningful variable or not, and how much of a meaningful variable that is. So now what we can do with every trial that's currently running in the world that's, registered on clinicaltrials.gov, we can actually tell you their probability of success with about 90% certainty. So then if you're running a trial, you can actually totally see whether your trial will succeed or not. And then we'll tell you what things to change to actually improve the chance of success.
Awesome, awesome. I'm really curious to know, like, as you said, like, no, there were 1,300 variable that comes into the picture when enhancing the accuracy of trial outcomes, right? So my question is, like, how did you pick those 1,300 variables and how they are kind of influencing the trial outcome? If you can first understand
Yeah,
me that.
totally. If you went 3 months ago, we had like 800. A year ago, we had like 300 or 400.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of the initial variables are ones that we had some kind of some trial clinicians on our board, some doctors that worked in the organization. They helped us figure out the first kind of set. So they gave some really good variables that we went off and got the data to figure out if they were meaningful or not. And then over time, we've just kind of accrued more and more variables as we've kind of gained more subject matter expertise. And the way it works is if you find a variable, you put it as the model. For example, you might say shoe size. Hey, that might be a variable. You put it
Uh-huh.
into the model, and the model will figure out if that's meaningful or not. And if it's not meaningful, it actually won't give it any weight, and it won't really influence the model. So really, the more variables you have, the more edge conditions you get, and that's why we're kind of at the 90% accuracy now, which is
Uh-huh.
probably near the upper limit of what you can probably do with these kind of models.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Great. Good to know that. Interesting. I mean, tell us, who are your clients? And your model, whom this model is helping. Like, tell
So
us
our
more.
first client for the first model that we did was it actually ended up becoming an investment fund. So it was a
Okay.
fund called L39. They're raising about $100 million,
Uh-huh.
and they're going to use our model to actually figure out whether they should buy or sell pharmaceutical stocks.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
Super simple. If a trial succeeds for a small pharma, you get a big uptick in share price. If it fails, you get a huge degradation of share price to near zero. So me and the CTO have been using this ourselves. We're up about 150% for the quarter because it's
Uh-huh.
actually super simple. You just buy a month before the trial succeeds or fails, and you sell afterwards. So I think in that sense, what it will do, a model like ours will give you probably near perfect capital allocation, where the
Uh-huh.
money for medical research will go to the trials and the companies that are most likely going to succeed. Um, that was our first customer set, but then generative AI really took off this year. So we built up a generative model. So now we released it probably about 2 months ago. So now you can log onto our system and say, look, I'm doing a lung cancer trial, phase 3 drug, and here's my underlying compound or chemical or mechanism.
Uh-huh.
And we'll actually generate a clinical trial synopsis that's most likely going to succeed. Um, so historically, you would have paid like a biostatistician like $100,000 to build your trial synopsis. So we build that for like 5 grand. And the killer feature is ours will be geared to success. And at the end of it, we'll tell you your probability of success of your competitors, and all the things that we change just to really, really absolutely gamify it and give you the best chance.
Awesome. Awesome. Understood. Pretty interesting though. So what I've understood is, like, you're into B2B business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your clients technically are pharmaceutical companies,
Yeah,
clinical trial organizations, research organizations, right? So
totally.
basically, you have cut down their cost, right? And
Mm.
you have reduced their time. Initially,
Yeah,
they were taking to kind of process these clinical trial outcomes, and they had all the failures and everything. So basically, you have improved the success rate, right? And you've
yep,
reduced the time, and then they are
that's it.
paying you.
Yeah,
Perfect.
pretty much. Pretty much.
Awesome.
So we've only got our first set of paying customers now. So we really launched our first model back in Jan. Most recent model probably would have been May, June this year. So now we've finally got our first set of paying customers that are kind of using it and actively kind of, giving us some revenue.
Right, right. So basically, what I see is you're building for future, right? Currently,
Hmm.
you might not have a lot of clients. You might or might not have a lot of clients. I don't have data for it, but I'm definitely seeing it a lot of potential for the future for sure.
I
Right?
think so. I think so.
Right, for sure.
Hmm.
So what I see is your product is entirely based on data, right? All the real-time data, all the past data, right?
Yeah.
So you have used that data to train the model, to test the model, right? So now there's one question in my mind that has been there a compliance issues in the past because you've been using these
Hmm.
data, right? A real-time data to kind of influence the AI model to predict the trial outcome, right? So
Hmm.
did you face any compliance issues or probably you'll be facing anything as such, and
Um,
how you're planning to overcome it?
Look, we probably haven't faced that many compliance things. So we're not using patient data. We use publicly available data to kind of train and build our model. So there's this move in medicine that they call real world evidence. It's look at all the evidence that's happened, but no one actually knows how to do that. And that's kind of all we're doing. So we're just using the evidence or all the historical data to hopefully try to make a future prediction. So to date, no, we haven't actually felt any kind of compliance burdens around that.
So basically, I mean, this entire technology you're seeing to it's moving in the healthcare AI as well, right? Because I see a lot of startups that they not only in North America but in India and across the globe. So healthcare is heavily being influenced by AI, right?
Yeah.
So where do you see this AI being coming to the picture? So how AI is going to influence the healthcare in next 10 years? If you can also talk about
I think what it will do, I think it will speed up a lot of the things that are very slow. So the other major companies that we work with, or we've spoken to a lot around drug discovery. So they've got models around the chemistry and the biology to help figure out new drugs that could be developed. We'll run virtual trials. So we'll simulate the trial 10,000 times to give the probability of success. So what you'll find, hopefully, that you'll get drugs and treatments coming to market much quicker. You'll also probably find on the trial side, so as I said, right now there's about 35,000 trials per year that are run. Almost all of them fail. But what you'll probably find is that there'll be much fewer trials that actually run in people. Millions of trials will be run in AI models like ours. And you probably only have 5 or 10,000 trials that will happen in people. But the best ones will happen in people, and then all the candidate trials will happen actually in an AI simulator.
Great. Awesome. Perfect. So, again, coming to your career trajectory, right now, I see that as we spoke about earlier, right now, you have consistently held the leadership role. So, I mean, like how you have been able to navigate through these roles, right? And what has been a key learning share with us, all those young people who are basically trying to make big in their life, right?
Yeah.
And trying to move into this leadership role, right? So if you can talk about that and give us the challenging part which you came across in your career and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, totally. Look, I think probably the first thing I'll say is just work harder. There is no shortcut. Like people always say, no, you should work smart. But no, I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. You just need to work more hours.
Right.
So the reason is the more you do something, the better you get at it.
Mhm.
And to be good at almost anything in life, you just got to do your 10,000 hours of practice.
Oh, nice.
I think a lot of people just want to succeed really early without actually having to do the hard work to succeed. That's one key. And the other part that I've kind of thought about myself is you want to figure out what is your core differentiator, and what can you do better than anyone else in the world. So for me personally, I'm a software engineer that has a good commercialization kind of aspect to him, and I've learned a lot around people management over the last kind of 5 to 10 years. So that kind of Venn diagram kind of defines me and my core value prop. And I think everyone wants to figure out what are you going to be better at than everyone else, and then just do that and do that really, really well.
Great. I saw that you have founded few companies as well, right? And you made a successful exit. So, if you have any advice for young entrepreneurs who are trying to build in the healthcare using AI, how should they go from zero to one?
I think the first thing is you got to figure out if doing a startup is your thing. Because I reckon most people it isn't, right? It's an emotional roller coaster. It's financially very difficult. You got to be able to fund yourself while you do this. You have all these ups and downs. And so one needs to figure out is that something that you're going to enjoy, something that you're actually going to be good at? Because you might actually choose to self-select your out and go work for somebody else or go work for a scale up or some other large organization. And if you have figured out that it is for you or you have this idea that you want to do, what I always say is you almost want to follow the money. You want to do the bare minimum to have some sort of meaningful product and then just go figure out who you can sell it to. Because nothing's real in life till somebody pays for it. So don't spend albeit at TrialKey, it took us 3 years of build and $20 million to get this to market. That's probably not the best way to do it if you're not adequately capitalized. The best way to do it is actually spend the minimum amount of money, enough so somebody's willing to pay you, something to use your product. Because then when you start getting some revenue, you'll get some really good kind of positive reinforcement. And then you'll figure out, hey, am I on the right track? Is there something to this? Or, hey, it was a great idea, but the time is wrong, I'm wrong, or something else. And I should do this again sometime in the future.